Hello, and welcome to the very first episode of the Panama Podcast. From dreaming to doing. I'm your host, Melissa Darnay. Today, I'll be sharing my journey of moving to Panama, including the ups and the downs, and why Panama is such an incredible place to live. Before we dive into my Panama adventure, let me introduce myself. I'm an American who has been living in Panama since 2012. I'm the owner of Choose Panama, a boutique real estate and property management company. Early in my career, I was a professional matchmaker. And when you think about it, selling real estate has a lot of similarities to matchmaking because I'm still matching people with their heart's desire. But instead of matching one person to another, I match people with properties. I get the same sort of satisfaction helping you find a vacation home that I used to get when I matched two people together and they really connected. Because let's face it, finding the right place to live is an important part of your personal happiness. My decision to move to Panama was not a straight line, but rather it occurred after a series of events. I was living in Dallas, Texas, which is an incredibly easy city to live in with a reasonable cost of living. However, there's no natural beauty in Dallas. I grew up in California and went to college in Santa Barbara. The longer I stayed in Dallas, the more I missed living on the ocean. But for me, moving back to Santa Barbara was an unattainable dream because of the astronomical real estate prices in Southern California. By 2010, I had traveled to about 30 different countries, and Panama wasn't even on my radar. Not only had I never been to Panama, but it wasn't even on my places I wanted to visit list. When my friends told me they were moving to Panama, I thought, I'm never going to see them again because I had no desire to go to Panama. However, by the end of the year, we missed our friends and a group of us made the trek to Panama for a one-week vacation. We had a great time, but we spent most of the time in the Coronado Beach area. And honestly, that area didn't and still doesn't appeal to me. I went home and thought, Panama would never cross my mind again. But over the course of the next year, I Skyped with my friends. That's what you did back in 2010. And each time I saw them on camera, they were looking happier and healthier. She seemed to always be in a bikini, no matter what time of day it was. And he would have that, I just got back from the beach, glow. Over the next few months, I started to think, what am I doing wrong? Why are they aging backwards and having so much fun? And I'm not. This thought grew bigger and bigger as the months passed. But the catalyst was the ice storm in Dallas in January of 2012. This ice storm was one for the record books. It hamstringed Dallas's first hosting of the Super Bowl and locked us in our houses for 5 days straight. Following that exceptionally cold winter, we then endured one of the hottest summers I could remember. In my soul, I longed for better weather, and I had a burning desire to see the ocean every day. I wanted a lifestyle change. I wanted more natural beauty, and I needed a personal adventure. I felt like I was in a rut in Dallas. Not only did I want to have an adventure, but I also wanted to surround myself with other adventurous people. In August 2012, in the dead of the Dallas summer, I returned to Panama. But this time, I came with a plan. I wanted to experience the entire country and find out if I could indeed move to Panama. I was a single woman, a young widow, so I had to find out, could I start over in a new country? Could I make friends? Could I meet someone for a meaningful romantic relationship? By the end of my trip to Panama, I'd fallen in love with Casa Bonita. It's in a beautiful resort area on a small beach just outside of Panama City. Although the building wasn't done at the time, I saw the view from the top of Casa Bonita building, and the view literally took my breath away. This is what I had been dreaming about. I could see ocean, mountains, jungle, and even the ships as they lined up to enter the mouth of the Panama Canal. It was literally, love at first sight. I bought an apartment in the building, sight unseen. Within a few months, I had packed my belongings, sold my house, and moved to Panama with my 2 little dogs. When I moved to Panama, I faced quite a few challenges. Personal challenges, navigational challenges, language challenges, and friendship challenges. Even though I had friends in the Coronado area of Panama, the ones whom I'd originally come to visit, they were several hours away. Starting from scratch was tough because I didn't know anyone in Panama City and I didn't speak Spanish. Because I didn't have a support system close to me, I wasn't sure how to navigate some of the basic aspects of life in a new city, like buying a car or getting a PriceSmart membership. Now, if you haven't been to Panama, PriceSmart is Panama's version of Costco. Navigating Panama City posed another set of difficulties. Panama doesn't have traditional addresses like 123 Main Street. Instead, locations are described by points of interest and neighborhoods. For months, I was unable to unlock my iPhone, which meant it was unusable in Panama. I had a basic burner phone that didn't have internet. When I wanted to go anywhere, I had to rely on old-fashioned maps. However, the lack of addresses translate to a lack of street signs, so getting from point A to point B was always 10 times harder than it should have been. In the beginning, I found my way home by looking at the skyline and finding my way back to Avenida Balboa. I remember the day I bought my car, though. The dealership was near the airport on Transismica, and I couldn't see the Avenida Balboa skyline. After I left the dealership, I knew I was lost, but I just kept driving until the road ended. And then I got on another road that pointed in the right direction, and I stayed on it until it ended. It literally took me several hours to find my way home, what should have been a 20 or 30-minute drive, but I eventually got there. A few days after buying my car, I was already tired of being lost, so I went to a big electronics store to buy a navigation system. Although the store sold nav systems for cars, they didn't have a map of Panama that they could put in the system. So of course I didn't buy it because it would have been worthless to me. The good news for you is that the world has changed since 2012. Most phones are sold unlocked. Apps like Waze are ubiquitous, and you can finally buy a nav system for your car with a map of Panama. Although those first months in Panama were very challenging for me, I now know Panama as well as most Panamanians. I know the names of streets, even when there's no street sign. I know which streets are one way, and I know which neighborhoods to never, ever go in. I was quite naive when I moved to Panama. I only spoke 5 words of Spanish, but I thought I would learn Spanish by osmosis. Although I've now developed an extensive network of English-speaking friends, at the time, the majority of people I met in shops and in service industries only spoke Spanish. After a year, I knew about 300 words. Yes, I counted, but I didn't know any verbs, so I was still having difficulty communicating. That's when I realized I needed to buckle down and learn some basic verbs like I want, I need, and do you have? In the early days when I went to a store, I had 3 options for finding something. 1, I could play charades with a store clerk and hope they got it. 2, I could just look around and hopefully find it. Or 3, I could bring a picture or translate it ahead of time. At restaurants, I became resigned to the fact that I would eat whatever they gave me because my inability to communicate was my problem and not theirs. I had a few interesting meals and ended up eating things that were definitely outside of my comfort zone. There were some good things that came out of my language challenges. For example, I used to go to the fresh produce market, which is much bigger than a typical farmer's market. It's where restaurants and small grocery stores go to get their produce. Even though it's huge, it's not touristy, and I was often the only gringa in the entire market. Now let me set the stage. 1, I didn't speak Spanish. You already know that. And 2, I didn't understand Spanish numbers, which meant I didn't understand money. When the vendor would tell me the price, I would literally open my hand, and hold out a handful of change. Most of the vendors are simple people. They're barely scraping by. They really could have taken advantage of me, but they didn't. They would literally pick out the correct amount of money and leave the rest. For the most part, they were really happy to see me, and every Saturday I could tell that they felt protective of me. Within a few weeks, I had regular vendors who would call out to me, "Amiga," as I approached their stalls. Over time, I went to the produce market less and less, but no matter how much time went by between visits, my vendors always greeted me like family, with a big smile and a happy spirit. It really was an amazing experience. The next challenge I had to overcome was making friends. I'm a social person, so making new friends was a necessity for my happiness. This is when one of the most surprising things happened. Every time I met someone new, they would introduce me to someone else. Within about a month, I had an active group of friends. This friend network was something I had never experienced in the U.S. It kept me from feeling lonely, especially initially, and it helped me integrate into the community much more quickly than if I had just moved cities in the U.S. Another interesting facet of making friends is that when you meet another expat, you already have something in common because you're both expats and you've both chosen to live in Panama. This immediate connection makes it easier to find out what else you have in common. When I had moved to Dallas from California, I felt like people already had their social circles, and it was tough breaking in and making friends. As an expat in Panama, you're naturally more open to new experiences, which makes it that much easier to make new friends. Now that I've covered my biggest challenges, I want to talk about my favorite part. What I think is the best part about living in Panama, the lifestyle. Panama consistently ranks high on lists of the best places to live and retire, such as those by International Living and Forbes. Factors contributing to these rankings include the cost of living, healthcare, and lifestyle. When I tell people about my lifestyle, honestly, they think I'm bragging. But you have to understand how amazing it is to me to live this lifestyle. I want to share it with the world. To me, lifestyle is comprised of three things: cost of living, accessibility of things I want, and the ability to enjoy life on a daily basis. First, let's talk about cost of living. Typically, someone who moves from the U.S. will have a cost of living that's about half of what they paid in the U.S. for a comparable lifestyle. That means your home cost is equal, the car you drive is similar, and the amount of money you spend on leisure activities is more or less the same. However, if you live in an expensive area, such as New York or California, your cost of living could be just a fraction of what it is now. I want to talk about where you really save money. First, in-home labor, such as a maid or a gardener. Depending upon where you live, you'll pay $30 to $50 per day for in-home help. The second bucket where you save a lot of money is property taxes. In most places, property taxes are a pretty big chunk of the money you spend in housing. There are many properties that have tax exonerations for 5 to 10 years. The building where I live had a 20-year tax exoneration, so we won't start paying property taxes until 2032. The third area of saving is insurance, any type of insurance. Because Panama isn't prone to natural disasters and most buildings are constructed of concrete, the structural and fire insurance of a property is just 0.1%. That means if you spend $400,000 on a property, your insurance will be a whopping $400 per year. Health insurance is equally affordable. Since doctor's visits are substantially less expensive and lawsuits are few and far between, an average couple might spend just a few $100s a month for health insurance. The cost, of course, will depend on many factors, such as what type of insurance you want, your age, and any pre-existing conditions. But you won't even pay a fraction of what you might pay in the U.S. The second part of lifestyle is the accessibility of things that I want. This includes a wide array of products when I go shopping, a lot of great restaurants nearby that offer different types of food, and my access to leisure activities that make me happy. And for me, that's dancing. For you, that may be golfing or competing in decathlons or going to the movies. This is where Panama shines. Because Panama is considered the hub of the Americas, we have access to North American products. And because Panama is such a magnet for expats from around the world, we have access to a wide range of food and leisure activities that may not be available in other Latin American countries. The final part of lifestyle is the ability to enjoy life every single day. Panama has great year-round climate, intense natural beauty, and a relaxed pace of life. The local culture is rich and welcoming. The food is delicious, and there are plenty of excellent restaurants to try. The expat community here is also supportive and vibrant, making it easy for newcomers to make friends. Regular happy hours, fitness classes, dance classes, pickleball, book clubs, and charity organizations focused on children and pets help foster a sense of community. Future episodes of the Panama Podcast will feature interview with expats who live, invest, or vacation in Panama. We'll have a mix of guests, including full-time residents, investors, vacation property owners, and renters. You will also hear from me on topics that are relevant to you as potential investors. I encourage you to subscribe and stay tuned for upcoming episodes. You can get involved by submitting questions, suggesting topics, and sharing your own stories. If you haven't read my book yet, please go to choosepanama.com and request a free copy of Panama Uncorked. Thank you for joining me on this inaugural episode of the Panama Podcast, From Dreaming to Doing. I'm excited to take this journey with you and help you explore all that Panama has to offer. Please subscribe, leave reviews, and share the podcast. You can find more information on our social media handles and website. In our next episode, we'll be talking to Amanda Gleason, an Australian who moved to Panama and found her inner entrepreneur. Until next time, cheers.